You don't just think, you overthink every conversation, every decision, every small mistake. Long after the moment has passed, your mind is still there, replaying it like a scene that refuses to end. You analyze the tone of your voice, the way they looked at you, the pause before they replied. You dissect words that most people have already forgotten. And no matter how much you think about it, you never feel relief. You just feel more trapped. At first, overthinking feels productive. It feels responsible. It feels like you're being careful, like you're preventing mistakes, like you're protecting yourself from embarrassment, rejection, or failure. But slowly, without realizing it, thinking turns into looping. Reflection turns into rumination. Awareness turns into anxiety. And instead of helping you, your thoughts begin controlling you. Overthinking is not intelligence. It's fear wearing the mask of logic. Your brain is designed to solve problems. That's its job. When something feels uncertain or threatening, your mind tries to predict outcomes. It tries to calculate risks. It tries to find control in uncertainty. But here, the problem. Not every situation can be solved with more thought. Some things require action. Some require acceptance. And some simply require letting go. But your brain doesn't like unfinished business. It doesn't like uncertainty, so it keeps searching, keeps analyzing, keeps replaying. It tells you, if I just think about this a little more, I'll find the answer. But the answer never comes, only more questions. Why did they say it like that? What if they're upset? What if I made the wrong decision? What if this goes wrong? What if I'm not good enough? And just like that, your mind creates scenarios that haven't happened, conversations that don't exist, judgments that may never come. Yet your body reacts as if they're real. Your heart rate changes. Your muscles tense. Your sleep gets disturbed. Because your brain cannot clearly distinguish between real danger and imagined threat. Overthinking activates the same stress response as actual danger. So even when nothing is happening, your nervous system feels like it is. You think you're just thinking too much. But what's actually happening is your brain is stuck in a loop of perceived threat. And the more you try to think your way out, the deeper you go in. Overthinking often begins as a coping mechanism. Maybe you grew up in an environment where mistakes were criticized. Maybe you learned that being prepared meant being safe. Maybe unpredictability made you anxious, so you tried to mentally control everything in advance. When your brain realized that analyzing reduced immediate anxiety, it stored that pattern. Think more equals feel temporarily safer. But temporary relief became a long-term trap. Because every time you overanalyze and still survive, your brain thinks, see, thinking saved us. It strengthens the habit. It wires the loop deeper, until thinking is no longer something you do intentionally. It becomes automatic. You wake up and your mind is already running. You sit in silence and your brain fills it with hypothetical problems. You try to relax and suddenly remember something embarrassing from 5 years ago. That's not because you're weak. It's because your brain learned that constant scanning equals survival. Overthinking also feeds on perfectionism. When you believe that mistakes define your worth, every decision feels heavy. You don't just choose. You calculate. You evaluate every possible outcome. You imagine worst-case scenarios to avoid regret. But ironically, this fear of regret creates paralysis. You delay decisions because you want the perfect one. You delay action because you want certainty. But certainty rarely comes. And so you stay stuck. The illusion of control keeps you trapped. You think if you analyze enough, you can eliminate risk. But life doesn't work like that. Risk is built into existence. Uncertainty is unavoidable. And the more you try to eliminate it mentally, the more anxious you become. Overthinking is often rooted in self-doubt. When you don't trust yourself, you double-check every thought. When you don't trust your decisions, you replay them. When you don't trust your worth, you analyze how others might perceive you. Self-trust acts like a filter. Without it, every situation feels unstable. So your brain compensates by thinking more. But thinking cannot replace trust. Another reason overthinking controls you is because it feels active. It feels like you're doing something. When you're anxious, doing nothing feels dangerous. So thinking becomes your activity. It gives you a false sense of productivity. But mental movement is not real progress. You can think about changing your life for years and never move. You can analyze a relationship endlessly and never communicate. You can plan the perfect future and never start. And slowly, overthinking steals your present. You sit with friends but replay a mistake. You lie in bed but rehearse tomorrow's problems. You walk through life physically present but mentally elsewhere. And then you wonder why you feel disconnected. The mind that never rests cannot experience fully. Overthinking also exaggerates negativity. Your brain has a negativity bias. It remembers threats more vividly than neutral events. So when you replay situations, you focus on what went wrong, the awkward moment, the potential criticism, the small flaw, and each replay strengthens that memory emotionally. It's like scratching a wound repeatedly. It doesn't heal, it deepens. The more you overthink, the less clarity you gain. Because clarity doesn't come from repetition, it comes from perspective, and perspective requires distance. But you rarely give yourself distance. Instead, you zoom in. You analyze tone, facial expressions, tiny details. And the more you zoom in, the more distorted everything becomes. Imagine holding a picture too close to your face. You can't see the whole image, only pixels. Overthinking is mental zoom without stepping back. It also drains your energy. Every thought consumes cognitive resources. When your mind is constantly active, your mental battery depletes. You feel tired without doing anything physical. You struggle to focus on simple tasks because most of your energy is spent internally. And then you call yourself lazy. But you're not lazy. You're mentally overloaded. Overthinking often creates decision fatigue. When you analyze every option deeply, even small choices feel exhausting. What to wear, what to reply, what to post, what to say, each decision becomes a mini crisis. Eventually, your brain avoids decisions entirely. Procrastination isn't always avoidance of work. Sometimes it's avoidance of mental overload. The more you overthink, the less you act. The less you act, the less evidence you gather. The less evidence you gather, the more your brain fills gaps with fear. And the cycle continues. You might believe that stopping overthinking means becoming careless, but that's not true. There's a difference between thoughtful and trapped. Healthy thinking leads to solutions and then stops. Overthinking loops without resolution. One key difference is repetition. If you've thought about the same scenario 10 times and nothing new appears, you're no longer solving. You're ruminating. Rumination gives the illusion of control, but actually reduces it. Because control comes from action, not analysis. Overthinking also disconnects you from intuition. Your intuition speaks quietly. It gives you a sense, a feeling, a direction. But when your logical mind becomes loud and dominant, that quiet inner voice gets drowned out. You stop trusting your instincts. You rely only on calculation, and life starts to feel mechanical. You feel stuck in your own head. Breaking free doesn't mean eliminating thoughts. That's impossible. It means changing your relationship with them. Thoughts are not commands. They are mental events. They pass through like clouds. But when you attach to every cloud and try to reshape it, you create storms. Learning to observe thoughts without engaging every single one is a skill. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Your brain will resist silence. It will search for problems to solve. But with practice, you realize something powerful. Not every thought deserves attention. Some thoughts are just noise. And when you stop giving energy to noise, it fades. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. The moment you understand this, control shifts. Overthinking loses power when you act despite uncertainty, when you send the message without rereading it 20 times, when you make the decision with incomplete data, when you accept that mistakes are part of growth. Action builds confidence. Confidence reduces the need for excessive analysis. Because confidence says, even if I'm wrong, I'll handle it. Overthinking says, if I'm wrong, everything falls apart. The difference is resilience. Resilience quiets rumination. Another shift happens when you accept that not everyone is thinking about you as much as you think they are. Most people are busy overthinking themselves. The spotlight effect makes you believe your mistakes are magnified, but in reality, they fade quickly. The freedom comes when you realize that perfection is not required for belonging. You don't need flawless words to be valued. You don't need perfect decisions to be respected. You don't need endless analysis to be safe. Overthinking thrives in silence and isolation. When thoughts stay unspoken, they grow unchecked. Sometimes simply verbalizing a fear shrinks it, writing it down, saying it out loud, sharing it with someone safe. It breaks the loop. Because loops survive in secrecy. And finally, understand this. Your mind is not trying to hurt you. It's trying to protect you. It just learned an extreme method. It believes constant vigilance prevents pain, but pain is part of life, and avoiding it completely is impossible. When you stop fighting uncertainty and start tolerating it, something changes. You breathe easier. You sleep better. You decide faster. You live more. Overthinking doesn't disappear overnight, but every time you choose action over rumination, presence over projection, trust over fear, you weaken its grip. You were never broken. Your mind just learned to survive too intensely. And now it's time to teach it how to live.